I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but I have been sick on and off like the last 2.5 months, and I've just not been willing to really film anything recently. So that's why this video is delayed. Also, please excuse the background. I am house sitting for the week, and I'm back in the bedroom that I did a lot of my videos in 3 years ago after my undergrad, but everything has since been moved around, so there's not really a good setup. So sorry about it. It's not the prettiest thing. Anyway, this video has been a long time coming. This is my January 2025 wrap up, and this wasn't even supposed to be that originally. This was just supposed to be a standard collection update, and I wanted it to do it like 2 weeks ago. But alas, here we are. Super Bowl's tomorrow, in case anyone was curious about how soon these go up after filming. Very much like just immediately, essentially, right? So I have a bunch of releases here because I've gotten a lot of things in the last month. I have new releases like from this year, and I have newer releases from this decade, and then I have the old stuff. So I want to start with the classics. In I think my first video back, I briefly touched on this first band, and I said I would like to get more into their catalog. This is a classic band, and that was My Dying Bride. I'm sorry about the lighting. Actually, you know what? Let me just... My Dying Bride. So I went on a mission, and I got their second, third, and fourth albums. I already had their debut as The Flower Withers. So I have Turned Loose the Swans in this beautiful 2003 pressing from Peaceville Records. I have their third album, Angel in the Dark River, which I thought was going to be that same pressing, but alas, it is not. This is, I believe, an original 1995 Fierce Records, Fierce Recordings version. And then I have their fourth album, which I got on the recommendation of Brain Smasher here on YouTube. I know everyone here, I assume everyone who watches me already knows of him and like the Metallurgy crew, right? Anyways, and then also their fourth album, Like Gods of the Sun. And this was also a 2003 Peaceville Records pressing, which I really like them. I think they're really beautiful. Anyways, you don't need a lot of introduction to My Dying Bride. I'm assuming everyone who's watching this knows who they are. Classic Death Doom project, one of the Peaceville Three, who ultimately introduced and probably pioneer a lot of this, what became the gothic metal sound. So a lot of the stuff that I listen to is greatly indebted to this band and the other Peaceville Three bands, which we'll touch on in a second. Good things, but it's definitely a different tone. So the debut as The Flower Withers, 1992, is very cold and unfeeling, and I think plays around with more death metal-y sounds. It is primarily a doom metal record at the face of it. But it definitely has a bit more of those moments of extremity that I think they don't lose them completely, but that like overt death metal influence is a lot less prevalent in these releases. So my favorite was actually 1993's Turn Loose the Swans. This album is very quiet and constrained and really indulgent in terms of just being weird and not being afraid of being long-winded and just being drenched in like these gothic strings and keyboard, and the piano playing on this is so good. And I think this is just a really fun, I think at the time I would call it probably innovative. I'm sorry about the lighting. Ugh. It's fine. We're just going to put that down. Anyways, innovative. God damn it. Okay, no. We're going to do this. Okay, better. Innovative, weird, sparse, and just really fun. There's, I want to say, almost no growls on this album. It's been a month since I've like really spun these, but this, just the entire atmosphere of this album is like right up my alley. The follow-up to this album was 1995's The Angel and the Dark River, which I feel like does a lot of the same things, but it definitely pulls back. It feels a lot more I guess, conformist. They're finding their sound here, and it's definitely a lot safer. It's yeah, I'll say it's a lot safer. It's still very long-winded and doomy and romantic, but not nearly as lush as the sophomore effort. And then by the time like Gods of the Sun comes around, this feels a lot more conventional in terms of sound and structure. And it's less, I think Martin Powell was the keyboardist during these early albums. He feels a lot more contained and restrained than on previous releases, but it's still cool to listen to. I still intend to like go back to these and really take my time with them. It's it's been a minute. I've kind of been focusing on a lot of newer releases at the moment, but I do want to get into these, and at the same time I want to get into My Dying Bride more. I also started collecting Paradise Lost stuff because for the longest time Paradise Lost was the one Peaceville 3 band that I could not really get into like anything by them. So I got their sophomore album, Gothic, originally released in 1991. I want to believe this is a 2000 and I actually don't know. I don't know which pressing this is, but this is Peaceville. And this album I actually tried spinning, but it still doesn't grip me. I know I need to like be patient with it. I don't know why I can't get into it. I feel like it should be easier to get through because it is such a shorter album than say like the My Dying Bride stuff. It's, 12 songs, but like barely pushes like 45, 49 minutes. So, like, I know it's a classic. More than anything, I think I got this out of obligation, but I would like to get more into this band. That being said, I also got their maybe 6th or 5th album, Draconian Times. Let me just pull this out. And this is a nice Japanese edition. And at this point in the mid-90s, they've completely changed sounds from the Death Doom. This is very goth rock inspired gothic metal. Not my favorite type of gothic metal. I like the more romantic leaning, like the symphonic-y doom stuff that came out of the 90s as well, but a lot of that stuff doesn't really pull from goth rock the same way that Paradise Lost started doing in the early mid-90s. But yeah, this was it's good. I mean, it's different. There was a lot of copycat bands of this sound towards the early 2000s, definitely. Not as common in the 90s, I feel like. But if you listen to, I think Sentence did something similar, though that was a bit more swaggy, I guess, for lack of a better term. A little bit more trad heavy metal. And then a band like Beseech did something similar as well. And then the last album in my like classics, like my 90s classics pile, is actually the third Peaceville 3, Anathema, The Silent Enigma. I bought this on I specifically bought this one because I have this album already on an Agheros Records pressing, and that's a digipack, but I have a thing about 90s and early 2000s like albums. I don't want them in digipack if they're on CD. I think they just look better. It's just the packaging feels a bit more correct in jewel case. So I got this, and the image originally posted on the eBay listing was the original CD cover instead of this one, which is also part of the reason why I wanted it. It is not, in fact, the correct pressing for the image. This is the zoomed in cover, just like my Agheros pressings, but I don't know. I still like having this on in jewel case over the digipack. This is Anathema, I think, at their best in terms of Death Doom stuff. Released in 1995. This is right towards the end of that Death Doom career that they were kind of a part of. They were, I guess, pioneers, though I think their status as a pioneer in Death Doom is kind of debatable. If anything, their contributions are more in like proto-gothic metal, even with some of their debut album. Like, I think Sleepless is a good example where it's doom metal and really heavy still, but it pulls from that goth rock sound and it has that post-punky kind of backbone a little bit in terms of like the bass and the drumming. It feels very inspired by like Sisters of Mercy or what are they called? What are they called? Well, The Cure, obviously, but like what are they called? Oh my god, I'm blanking. Amazing 90s goth band. I love them. They wrote I for the Main Chance. It's a great album from like 1991. Anyways, it feels inspired by that ilk of like British goth rock from the 90s. Anyway, moving on, I want to get into this year's releases. And first off, I have Patriarch. This is, I don't even know what the album is called now that I think about it. Oof. Anyways, the band is called Patriarch. They were one of the Batushkas back when that was like the hotness of black metal. This was the spin-off. Okay, so Batushka broke off into two bands also called Batushka. The one that was led by the instrumentalist in Polish courts got to keep the name Batushka, and so this Batushka had to change their name, and they did it really quickly over the course of like the last 6 months. And so all of their stuff is now on streaming under the name Patriarch. This is released January 3rd under the name Patriarch, and I really enjoyed this. There are some, it's that like orthodox infused black metal. It's a little bit of a folk kind of influence to this as well. It's imbued into orthodox Christianity aesthetics and culture and even language, right? It's cool. I think the black metal aspect is not nearly the most interesting part. It's always the stuff going on around it, like the orthodox like church singing style that is layered into this, like the choirs, and all those little tiny bits I think are the more interesting aspects of this, because it's not, at least riffing wise, it's not the most intense thing. It's actually pretty laid back as a black metal record. I feel like if this was released under a different band and maybe like 20 years ago, I feel like bands did similar things like this all through the late 90s and early 2000s, and we called that shit gothic metal back then, even if it was black metal, like Rotting Christ's stuff from like the late 90s. It was black metal-y, but it was also gothic metal. Early Tristania was black metal-y, sort of, but we called it gothic metal. I don't know. It's cool. I think there's some small production flaws that are kind of hard to overlook. The vocal performance is, I think, a little constrained. Like, it definitely has its flaws, but I enjoyed the album through. Though that being said, I think because this is the version of the band that is fronted by the original vocalist of the original Batushka, and he wasn't involved much with the songwriting, there's just a certain stink of inauthenticity that kind of lingers around this band, and it's kind of hard to look past. But that just might be a personal thing, right? But I really enjoyed it. Not going to be a top anything this year, but it's cool. If you haven't checked it out yet, by all means, please do. It was released on Napalm Records, if I didn't say that. Also released on January 3rd was Anhedonia by Lord Agheros. This is released on My Kingdom Music, and it's an ambient black metal project from Italy. And this is actually the first time I've ever heard of this band. I believe it's a one-man project. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm trying to branch out a little bit more. Like, I love the gothic metal stuff and I love the symphonic metal stuff, but I'm trying to hopefully this year become more of a generalist. And I think so far off to a okay start, right? So what I'm doing this year is I'm just keeping like a spreadsheet with all the new releases that I have listened to and just giving them a really basic like reaction: negative, mildly negative, neutral, mildly positive, positive. And that's what I keep track of. And then like if I like it enough to buy it, then I will really give it more thought. But this album, I'm getting, I got sidetracked, but this album is really cool. It plays around with melody in a fun way. The first track is like, I think 6 minutes long. It's called Lament of the Lost, and the first half of it is just clean singing. And there's multiple clean like vocalist guests on this album that just have different textures, and they play around with production and different layerings and keyboards and strings, and it's just a really cool sound. It feels, I don't even know how to describe it because it's not quite symphonic. and it doesn't have a gothic tone. It just feels very light, and a little romantic. I don't know. It's just a really cool atmosphere and a vibe that I really fuck with. Yeah, it took a while to get here, so if anyone wants to order, be warned, the shipping from Italy takes a while. Next up, I believe this came out on the 10th. We saw the release of the second Halo Effect album, March of the Unheard. I actually didn't listen to the debut ever, and I will probably go back to doing that and maybe even get it, but I really liked this. This is a melodic death metal project formed and fronted by, I don't know his name. Ooh, he's the guy from Dark Tranquillity, and he also started Cemetery Skyline last year. That was also like a gothic metal project that debuted. I didn't love it, but this was really cool and really good, and I love the art direction, and it's just really old school style, like just blazing melodic death metal, and just really high quality, and it does some things that are different that you wouldn't expect to see from a band from that like 90s time and sound. They play around with some strings and some nice cleans. I don't know. It was a really well-constructed record. That being said, there were things about this. It's been a while since I've listened to this too. There were some small things about it that I didn't love, and I'm trying to remember what those are. It could be a little long. I don't know. It's a lot going on. But I guess production is a little too clean. And that's like a modern critique that I have for a lot of metal. Production is always a little too clean, but it feels really in line with that 90s Gothenburg sound, and I really enjoyed it. Next up is something kind of different. This is the Obsidian Resirrection. As Darkness Falls. This is an independently released, I believe, debut from a band that was active 20 years ago, and at the time they were called just Obsidian, and they reformed during COVID, I think, and they've changed their name to the Obsidian Resirrection, and they finally put out a full-length album with they had released a demo before, and so they'd taken those 3 songs, revamped them, and then there's also more. So like it's 8 tracks, and it plays for more than an hour. It's a little long-winded, but it is just high quality symphonic death black metal. It's just a nice combination of melody and extremity that I really enjoyed. And also the artwork is great. Look at that. The hand-drawn depiction of like the angel and Angel of Death? I don't know. Who cares? It's beautiful. And I really like this. I guess I don't really have anything left to say about it. It's just really just heavy and riffy, and the vocal performance is really good. And I like the melody keyboards that they use. Tons of fun. It feels definitely like a throwback record. Especially since I believe it's not like programmed strings like most symphonic bands would do these days. It is full keyboard, and I love that sound. It's a nice texture. It's warm, and it's just nice. It has a nice fuzz to it. Moving on, in a similar vein but less extreme, there's this band from Greece called Kosmogonia. I'm sorry, I'm getting my names confused. Kosmogonia. And they get listed on the Metal Archives, and I think they call themselves a melodic death / folk metal band. I just don't really know if that is necessarily what I would call them. For me, it's this style of like kind of like middlingly extreme. Like it's not commercial metal by any means, right? It's still like an extreme metal band. They do heavy string or keyboard laden melodies on top of pretty cool riffs and some flute added, and it's Beauty and the Beast style vocals. To me, when you listen to it, it's kind of like the Patriarch, where it's like if this was released 20 years ago, we would just call it gothic symphonic metal with maybe some like folk metal instrumentation added. But melodic death metal, I don't know. Maybe you could see like, okay, so there are like death metal riffs in here, but it feels maybe more power metal leaning, symphonic. It's really good though. Like I really thoroughly enjoy this album, especially so I take the train a lot to get to work, and so that's usually when I listen to new releases, if I'm reading on the train, I'll listen to those and I'll come back to them. I'll return to them. It's just, I don't know. It's really good. It's, who would I compare this to? Beauty and the Beast style band that with slightly folky instrumentation. Maybe not Leaves' Eyes. They're definitely more extreme than Leaves' Eyes. Leaves' Eyes never really had like a death metal riff going under those strings. I don't know. It's cool. I think maybe Ellis would be like a really close comparison. Anyways, independently released, I believe, as well. So please support this band. I messaged them on Facebook asking about the CD pressings because they weren't listed yet. And they got back to me really quick and it was cool. On that footnote, I also went ahead at the same time and bought their debut from 2020. Ooh, it's been a long time just in general, but life is too long and short, both. But I actually haven't listened to the debut yet. I just went ahead and got it because I didn't want it to sell out before I could get a copy of it. So I will report back hopefully in the future if it really like hits me in a good place right in the ear and brain. It's called Enthrone the Gods. Oh, date. Backtrack. I'm sorry. The sophomore album is called Aella, I believe. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I want to say it was Aella, right? Aella, maybe. I don't know, but it's cool and it's like fantasy, folky, kind of extreme metal. Anyways, moving on. The next release that I have came out on the 17th, I believe, or the 24th. Don't remember. Whatever. Doesn't matter. This is Harakiri for the Sky, their most recent album called Scorched Earth. The artwork that everyone else has probably seen is that, which is beautiful. This is post-black metal from, I believe, Germany or Austria. I'm getting my countries confused. And this is really cool. I need more time with it. The first 4 tracks are just like blistering, so engaging, a little long, but just really, really engaging. They're always doing something to catch your attention. And it's not, it is post-black metal, but it doesn't have this like weird, open, spacey, overly atmospheric tone that I tend to have an issue with when it comes to a lot of post-black metal. It is pretty well grounded. It is extreme, and it is very obviously still like this is fucking heavy metal, right? I don't know. It's really cool. There's good, clean singing on it. Most of it is like this weird form of like fry, harsh vocal that's very throaty and leathery. And it's not my favorite thing in the world. But I think after the first song, it feels a little overwrought on that first track. And then I think it kind of, by the time you get to the second track, you find a happy medium. And I kind of got pretty used to it pretty quickly. I still do need more time with this. It's just a little overly long, especially because this is the version with the bonus tracks on it. It's very long. So, when you have to like sit through it all in one go, it's kind of a lot to take in, but it is well constructed and I really enjoy it. And I'm actually going to go see this band open for Swallow the Sun in March, I think. So I can't wait to see that. And the last thing that I have for 2025 releases is Antifragile by All That Remains. And I actually did not anticipate liking this album as much as I did. I know that I've enjoyed this band's really early stuff back in the day. But I don't keep up with this band, really. So the fact that this came out and I really fucked with it, I think means I should probably go back and check out what they've been doing. This is nothing like extraordinary. It's just really well constructed, commercial, melodic metalcore. It definitely reminds me of being in like late middle school, early high school, and getting into some of those metalcore, melodic death fusion bands. It's a little nostalgic in that sense, even though I don't like a lot of those bands. This is really fun. The clean singing I think is a little weak. He's not my favorite singer, and the voice isn't that strong, but the melodies are catchy. The riffs are pretty split between like extreme and melodic and just really catchy. And like just the meter is really fun. Like the vocal meter and the vocal rhythms are they're exactly what I want in a band and an album like this. So this was really cool. Again, nothing groundbreaking. It's just really fun. So, and that's not to say that this was all that I enjoyed from 2025. This is just all that came in. By the way, this came out on the 31st. Technically, I did not get this in January. I got this on the 1st, but whatever. January wrap up, right? I have more stuff coming from overseas, but this is what I have in now. So you'll probably hear more about January in later videos. Anyways, moving on. The last pile is newer releases that came out in the last last 1 to 10 years. Just newer, modern releases that I missed out on that I'm finally getting in my collection. To start off, I want to talk about more releases from last year that didn't make it into my giant 2024 wrap-up video. Not that giant. It was less albums than this. But I did finally get the High Parasite debut, Forever We Burn. I ordered this way back when, and the CD pressings were delayed. So I finally got this in. And this ended up being like my second favorite album of last year. It is just a perfect mix of like modern hard rock, heavy metal, and goth rock. So I don't know. It's just really fun. It's fronted by Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride fame. And I think the other musicians are also probably big names in British heavy metal. I think one of the guitarists is also in My Dying Bride. And this also features guest vocals from, I don't remember her name, but she was the singer of Tapping the Vein, which is an alternative gothy kind of industrial band from like the 2000s. So that was like a weird voice to hear. Like, oh, I recognize that immediately. I don't know. It was just really fun. I thoroughly enjoy this, commercial as hell, but in like, I don't know, I think it's like kind of the best way. It's all the fun of almost dancey, like almost, what's that band? Oh my god, like Spirit Box is like hyper modern metalcore. It's kind of like fun of that, but you add that that My Dying Bride sensibility, that like gothic-y dark sensibility. It's just a lot of fun. I don't know. I can't justify myself. It's just good. Next is the Foreshadowing's new album, New Wave Order, which came out late last year. Oh, the colors on this are terrible. Ooh. Anyways, this is their first album in 5 years, I believe. And this is actually kind of a departure for this band. This is an Italian gothic doom metal band. However, their fifth album, sees them pretty much leave all of those doom influences behind. This plays more in the space of High Parasite or like Draconian Times by Paradise Lost. It's goth infused heavy metal, kind of atmospheric, kind of commercial. And it is, I think, from what I've heard of this band, because it's also the first one that I've purchased from them, but I've gone back to make sure I'm not crazy. This might be my least favorite of their albums. It's just a little bit too clean. Some of the melodies are not as well thought out, and the production can be a little overbearing, especially on the voice. I don't actually know his name, but the lead singer used to be in How Like a Winter, which was this like gothic doom project 20 years ago, and I know he can sing. Like, he has an amazing, like, just a beautiful, deep voice. And there's just so much modulation on his vocal performance in this album that it was kind of hard for me to, like, get through. Not saying this is a bad album. It's not. I just am not crazy about it. And the last thing I want to talk about for 2024 is this band Spirewell, this independent band from Finland. This is their new album, came out late last year as well. It's called And Fire Whispered Unto the Cruel. This band is kind of really similar to those earlier My Dying Bride releases. This is a gothic death doom project, and it's mostly similar, I want to say, to like Angel and the Dark Ocean, or what that album was called. Oh. See, this is the bad thing about being sick, is that you used to forget things. The Angel in the Dark River. It's very similar to that sound. Very long, really just kind of like heavy, and not like extreme heavy. I mean, just like it weighs down on you as you listen. It's just like heavy, right? Really decent. Like I really enjoyed this album. It has some of those fun additions of like that 90s death doom sound, like the violin and the keys, the very sparse piano. It's good, right? And then they also threw in, when you purchase the new one, they throw in their debut from, what year did this come out? 2022 maybe? I don't remember. It might have been earlier than that. But this is their debut for They Speak Against the Wickedly. Ooh, long, wordy titles. This album I enjoyed less. The sophomore definitely feels more mature, but they definitely play in the same realms. It's very My Dying Bride. Gothic Death Doom. Anyways, and the last 6 releases I have here are modern releases that came out in the last several years. The first band I want to talk about is this band called Concrete Age. They are originally from Russia, and they have since relocated to the UK. They are a really cool kind of melodic death. I'm going to say more just death metal with some nice leads here and there. Right? So death metal, thrash metal, folk metal fusion. It's kind of melodic death metal mixed with thrash metal as the basis, and then has folk instrumentation thrown on it. They're originally from like the Balkans, so a lot of that cultural and like folk, just that's their cultural touchstone for their for this band. So I have 3 albums by them. I don't know, like they've have like maybe 8 or 9 under their belt at this point. The most recent one was Motherland from 2023, I believe. Oh no, this came out in 2024 also. Ooh, this should have gone in the last pile. Anyways, this came out in 2024, probably early on 2024, and I really enjoyed this. However, I did not enjoy it as much as the album that came out before that, which I did listen to in 2023, and I bought a copy in a cardboard sleeve. This is Bardo Todo, and I think this is the superior record from this band. It's so good. It's just endlessly catchy and just heavy, and just like it's a good melodic thrash metal band album. It's just like, it just has you like going the whole time, and then they'll like switch it up to like they'll go from a really like extreme bit and then kind of like open up the sound, and it'll be the folk instrumentation and like the drums going, and it's just a nice, it's just kind of off the wall, like it's cool. I like the way that this band incorporates all of the aspects together, especially for this album. I think the integration of all these sounds is a lot more smooth and more consistent in Bardo Todo than Motherland. Though they are, I think, comparable in quality, I think this is the superior album. That being said, I have yet to listen to the album that came out before that, Spirituality, which I believe came out in 2020 or 2021 on Harbin Productions. I've not heard this one yet, but I intend to soon, because if it's even close to like the quality of these 2 albums, I will be in a very happy place. I'm sorry. These jewel cases kind of came to me a little beat up and battered, so give me patience. Next up is Cabal by Palace of Worms. I don't know where this band is located. I believe they are broken up now, even though I can't find a statement, like an official statement on that, but I believe their status is broken up. But they are an American-based black doom metal band. Their earlier stuff was more black metal influenced, and then as they've progressed, they've gone more doomy, and this is really weird, off the wall, kind of proggy. There's a lot of guest instrumentalists on this. When I listened to it, I couldn't give it the best. I couldn't give it all my attention, but this band's really cool. So even if I don't love it, I think the coolness factor of it already makes it interesting. This was put out by the Asaphiel Winter Productions label here in Oakland. Their big thing is mostly CDs, limited pressings of, not CDs, their big thing is cassettes, limited pressings of 50 cassettes. And on the rare occasion, they will put something out on CD. And they actually sent me a cassette with this from a noise metal project that I'm, not even noise metal, just a noise music project that I'm blanking on. I meant to grab it for this, but I guess I left it at home. I did listen to it online because I don't have a cassette player in my apartment. It wasn't really my thing, but you know, I like the freebies, I enjoy it, and I always like to talk about Asaphiel Winter Productions because they are owned and run by a guy that I know, and I guess it's been a while since we've talked, so I'll say tentatively, I'll say a friend, right? I haven't talked to him in a long time, but Jacob at Asaphiel Winter Productions is a really cool guy. So I will plug his stuff as long as I can. Anyways. So I will come back to this album again. I did not love it, though I did love their previous record, The Ladder, that I got in college. And it's, from what I remember, it's a bit more dissonant black metal fusion with doom metal. It is a stronger record from what I remember, even though I think the production on Cabal is better. But I do need to take my time to like go back and re-listen to them. Moving on, something a bit more conventional in terms of my taste. This is Chapter 3, Downfall by Ad Infinitum. Came out in 2023 on Napalm Records. This is the band's third album, and I said in the beginning of the year that I did not love this band's most recent album, but this was the one that I was missing. So, again, this band started off in a very kind of commercial symphonic metal space before their most recent record, which is more groovy, hyper modern, like Spirit Box clone kind of. Yeah, right, okay. Spirit Box / Bring Me the Horizon type sound. That being said, at this point, they're still kind of sticking with the symphonics, and it's a very like constrained symphonic sound, which I appreciate. I've been getting really, I think, burnt out on these like really overly orchestrated symphonic metal albums. I think the biggest problem is nowadays everyone is produced the same and sounds very similar, and so you end up with these bands that now have the budget to sound really clean and professional and big and extravagant, but they kind of use that to hide a lot of the mediocrity in the genre. I'm kind of unhappy with the direction that symphonic metal in general has been going. Of course, there's like standout bands, but it's a sound that I love, and I think it's gotten really, the market is bloated, and it's kind of really hard to find new stuff. Anyways, so this album, it's a little bit more constrained, and I like that, almost to an Evanescence-y level of orchestration, which is much quieter. It's just a little bit more intimate sound. I'm not saying that it sounds like Evanescence. The comparisons could be made. It's slightly not fully 100% symphonic metal. Like that change from what they're doing now, I think can be seen throughout their career. Like the change from even the first album to the second album. That second album had a lot more groove, almost new metal style riffing on it, and alt rock production. And this one, I think, pulls away from that a little bit. I think they had realized that they had maybe changed a little too quickly, like too much too quickly. And so this is like a happy medium of like that symphonic and alt rock sound. But yeah, no, it's not bad. I probably do need to do like a whole listen through of this band's albums back to back to really like form opinions, because I don't want to say too many things out of hand. Anyways, moving on. Last thing is, because this band's new record comes out next month, I went ahead and got the one that I was missing from the modern day releases. Again, jewel case. Falling apart. Anyways, this is Existence is Futile by Cradle of Filth. I really like Cradle of Filth, and that's not to say that everything they do is a win, because there was a while there where like it was bad album after bad album. But the comeback, like the comeback records, starting with Cryptoriana, I think, or no, Hammer of the Witches, starting with Hammer of the Witches, I think have been really, really strong. This is not my favorite of those, of like the modern era of Cradle of Filth, but it is still a nice, it's pretty good, easy listening. Like, you put it on, and it's Cradle of Filth, it's Danny and the crew, and it definitely has its merits. Excuse the dog. It has its merits. I really liked it, though it's not as engaging as some of their previous works. I think the vocals are mixed a little too forward, and as Danny has aged, I'm gonna let the dog out. Give me 1 second. Anyways, as Danny has aged, his vocals have just gotten like a little weaker and a little goofy, and the fact that they're so forward in the mix is a little strange. But ultimately, what we have here is a really cool gothic symphonic melodic death metal album. Like, their genre-wise are always kind of hard to pin down. Back in the early days, it is very obviously like they are like a gothic black metal or like symphonic black metal band. And then starting with the 21st century, that's where things kind of change up. Some of their stuff is a little bit more thrashy. Some of it is just kind of straight ahead symphonic metal with some extremity weaved in. I know they go by gothic extreme metal, and I guess it's apt, but specifically speaking, this feels like a melodic death metal album that just happens to have a lot of kind of Halloween-y, cheesy synths and strings, and it's a good album. It's just not maybe as well done or as thought out as I know this band can do. But that being said, I did listen to the new single that came out for the new album, and I really enjoyed that. So I have that on pre-order, I think. And if I don't, I will work on that. But I still need 2 more albums from this band from the 2000s. I still need, what do I need? I need Thornography, and I need the follow-up. Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder, The Life and Crimes of Gilles de Rais. That is the 2 Cradle of Filth albums that I am missing from my collection, and I will probably try to get on that really soon too, so I can say I have like the whole discography. Anyways, but this is a long video. That was my 2025, my January 2025 wrap-up collection update. That's a lot, and I still have more stuff coming, not to mention that I'm actually like doing a good job keeping up with new releases, so I've been doing like 4 of them a week minimum, at least listening, right? And then I try to find what I like in that, and the collection is growing. But yeah, so I'll see you guys soon. I have something planned for, I want to get it done in the next week. I don't know if it'll be possible, but in honor of another new release coming out next weekend or next Friday, I want to talk about one band's discography, and hopefully I can get it out before then. But until then, see you guys next time.